Well, welcome. I am Joan Hangarter, and welcome you to the Conscious Life Expo 2010. We're having a fabulous time, and I have the privilege of knowing Susan Shumsky, who has kind of knocked my world and really brought in the spiritual aspect of bringing everything together of what's going on today. You have a treat in store, a fabulous speaker, a really wonderful woman to know, and I want you all to welcome Susan.
Okay, today we're going to be speaking about ascension, meeting the Masters of Immortality, and we're going to learn about ascension. We're going to meet several ascended masters, and we're also going to have a meditation at the end of today's presentations. So I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about what ascension is. Ascension essentially means physical immortality. It means transforming this physical body into a body of light and then living on indefinitely, eternally in the body of light, and being able to appear or disappear anytime, anywhere at will, and manufacture any kind of body that you want to be in, even a human body or an animal or any kind of body that you want to appear in, and disappearing whenever you want, and having full mastery over all the laws of nature and full mastery over all the laws of the universe, full mastery over all the elements of creation. So it's very rare to attain ascension. It's a very rare thing. Very few people have attained it. Compared to how many people have ever lived, it's fairly rare. I would say that probably the biggest proportion of people who have attained ascension would be Buddhist masters from Tibet. And they claim that many tens of thousands of people have attained what they call the rainbow body. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on.
Should be a clicker
So,
for that.
the ascended masters, ascended beings of light, have been with humanity for eons and eons of time, and they are working behind the scenes to help us in our spiritual evolution of this planet and individually. We can call upon them at any time, and they will be there to assist us. All we have to do is ask. It's really that simple. And call upon them by name. In the 18th century, there was a man named Karl von Eckartshausen. He wrote a book called The Cloud Upon the Sanctuary. He was really the first in the West to speak about a secret organization of divine beings who have ascended masters. And he called this organization, this divine organization, he called it the Council of Light. Council of Light. Later, Helen Blavatsky, she called them the Masters of the Hidden Brotherhood, or the Mahatmas. Mahatma actually means the great saints, the great souls, the great beings of light. So, these beings of light are with us, and they're always with you. So you can ask, you can call upon them by names. We're going to be speaking about many of the ascended masters today and tell you little stories about some of them. So you'll know a little bit more about who they are and how you can call upon them and what they can help you with in your everyday life. For example, we have, of course, Jesus, who was a great ascended being. In fact, when we think of ascension, we think of Jesus, because in the Catholic Church, what he did is called the ascension. The ascension. According to the Catholics, he is the ascended master. He's the one who attained ascension. So what is the characteristic of an ascended master? Well, we can know that by his life. because after he came off the cross, he was taken into a tomb, and 3 days later, when the stone was rolled away from the tomb, there was nothing left except for a shroud, which we know as the Shroud of Turin, which means he disappeared in a flash of light. There's no way he could have gotten out of that tomb because it was guarded day and night, so it's not like his body could be carried away. And then, after his ascension, he appeared to many disciples. And he showed himself in physical form so that they knew that he really had ascended and that he was still living, he was still alive. He was an immortal being, an immortal master, an ascended master. What is that noise? Oh, emergency exit, okay. Okay, there was a Russian physician, his name was Nicholas Notovich. He wrote a book called The Unknown Life of Christ in 1894. And he had visited India. He'd gone into the Himalayas, and there's a place called Ladakh in Leh, and he had discovered in that place, which was a Buddhist nunnery, he had discovered 2 ancient volumes with over 200 verses. It was called The Life of Saint Issa. And it was Jesus' travel in his lost years from age 13 to 29. So during the lost years of Jesus, he was in India. And this manuscript tells you all about his travels throughout India and what he had discovered there and how he had taught what we call Advaita, or one God. He had taught the idea of monism, one God. And he had learned, he had taught, he had studied in many of the ashrams in India during that period of time. And then after he was in India, he had traveled to several other places, including Persia. And this being of light, his name is Konar, was one of Jesus' teachers who lived in Persia. Now, we know that Jesus was in India because the very first verse of the chapter John in the Bible, the book of John in the Bible, the very first verse says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Okay? We know that verse. Everyone knows that verse from the Bible, right? That verse is an exact quote from the ancient Vedic scriptures of India. An exact quote. It isn't just a paraphrase. It's the exact words. So we know that those words were quoted by Jesus and that those come from India. Another great ascended being is Mary. She was lifted into heaven by a host of angels. It's called the Assumption of Mary, and it is part of the Catholic tradition, and it is celebrated every year on August 15th. Apparently, what was left over after she ascended into heaven was simply a bed of roses. There was nothing else left. Another divine being who we believe is ascended is St. Francis of Assisi. And this picture, by the way, I'm the artist. I did all these pictures, and they're all available at my booth, booth 86, if you'd like to purchase any of my pictures. So this is St. Francis, and this is a depiction of when he first had his revelation from the cross, and he received the message, "Go and repair my church," which is falling down. You probably know the story about this, but in any case, he did receive this vision, and he took it literally. He thought he was supposed to repair the church, so he actually took a bolt of fabric from his father's store and he sold it in town, and his father got pretty angry at him, but he gave it to the church so they could repair the church. But he went on to repair the church in every possible way because he became an exemplar of the Christ consciousness at that time. Another great ascended being from the Bible is Enoch. And Enoch was one who had attained ascension. It is said, Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Okay. He ascended. He went up into heaven in a flash of light. And in the book of Hebrews it is said, by faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found because God had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased God. So translation is another word for ascension, just for your information. So when they speak of translation, that's the same thing. The flash of light going into this divine realm. You know, you don't have to be dead to do this. You can do this while you're still alive. And then you can reappear in any form, take your same form, take another form. There are many people who have done this, and we're going to continue to learn about some of them. Melchizedek is another ascended being, ascended master of light. And he had given a blessing to Abraham. And right after he gave him the blessing, Abraham's wife got pregnant, and miracle of miracles, she was already, I don't know, 90 years old or something, and she had a child. So, God made a covenant with Abraham that his seed would be numberless as the stars in heaven. And that was because his wife did get pregnant finally. And Melchizedek is known as the Ancient of Days. He apparently was never born, never died. He's eternal. So he's a great ascended being. We have Moses also as the lawgiver of the Israelites. And many people believe that he is an ascended being. And one reason that we know that he's an ascended being is during the transfiguration of Jesus, he appeared. Moses appeared, Elijah appeared. So we know that they were both ascended beings of light. We also believe that